was a strong peer review amongst regions. Now, what led to the fall of that particular system? A system that saw regions develop, incrementally.
It was, remember the first coup failed. It didn't succeed. The coup of Nzogo.
66 January.
Yes, it was countered by the then commander, commander of the army, Ironsi. But remember, Ironsi didn't actually plan a coup. So when the coup happened and government was thrust on him, he didn't have a plan. He didn't know. When you plan a coup, you have, oh, this was wrong, this is how I'm going to do it. So he came trying to placate every area while he's grappling with how to forge a government. That didn't happen before he himself was overthrown and killed. Then another government came. It was that government that came now that enthroned this unitary form of government.
But I remember there was a decree, General Iheire, put forward by the Ironsi administration, a unitary decree, not the one by then Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gawan.
Yes, there was another decree because that was the aim, that was the reason for the upsurge in the north. Another decree came later by Gawan. I don't know whether decree 8 or something to abolish that.
Okay.
But that again was overthrown when there was a resistance again.
And the question is, why was that decree? Why was the coup plotted? Why was the First Republic, diminished? Why did it fall? What were those issues at the time that prompted the military to take over from the regional government?
There was this political uprising in the West, if you remember, which led to Operation Wete. And then the declaration of emergency by the Balawa government. And those young men then saw that something was going on with their country. And they thought, no, this drift should stop. Because behind their mind also, they didn't quite like our capitalist way of life. They admired Kwame Nkrumah and they admired Awolowo. And their plan was actually to go back to the communist type of system that will reduce corruption, make the masses enjoy, and have a basis for development, unlike what we had, which they thought was exploitative.
So in not too many words, all the pull at the fabric of those various regions made the military to intervene. And this led to eventually a civil war. What are the lessons we ought to have learned or we learned from the civil war, 67 to 1970?
Let me address your language of military to intervene. We have to understand when military intervenes in the government. It's not in that character which happened in those days. When the military, remember, the military and the civil meet at the level of commander-in-chief. When you have a military government, the military is regarded as the most patriotic arm. So when they see something wrong, it is the military high command that tries to address what is wrong and correct it in the interest of the country. When you have people below that level truncating the military, the government, truncating the military hierarchy, I call them rogue regimes. And that's what we have had through in Nigeria. I don't really see them as military governments.
Now, he asked a question about what led to the Civil War from 1967 to 1970, especially the ethnic division in the military. There was pervasive, entrenchment of ethnicism at the time, based on history, such that we had the central a party at the time which had a central image at the time, NCNC, that went into alliance with the Northern People's Congress.
NPC, yes.
But at some point, when the NCNC felt that there was fair treatment in terms of representation in Parliament, it went further to align with the action group
to form the
ABGA. Now, when you look at the issues that led to alignment and realignment of political parties at that time, which was centered on political ethnic interests, it does appear that we have not moved so far away from some of those problems that existed in the First Republic and today.
Yes, because we compounded them. First of all, after the Littleton Agreement of 1954, That set the stage for us to operate. Recognizing our diversity. Operate at your own pace. You didn't have to merge oil and water and say they forced them to join. It's not going to be possible. Our founding fathers had that wisdom. And that could have happened also if the federal government had accepted the Aburi Agreement. By now, we won't be having this kind of problems. It is this Aburi Agreement which is now what is coming up again in the form of restructuring. Because if the federal government had accepted the Aburi, we had regions as we were saying, everybody was there, we would have gone back to what we were before, and there would be no cause for the problems we really had. So it was that refusal of the Aburi Agreement that led to the Civil War.
Didn't you think there was more integration in Nigeria in the First Republic than we have now?
Yes.
There was more integration.
There was more integration.
Despite the fact that the system was more of regional governance.
That's right.
Whereby political leaders were stronger in their regions than they were
exactly.
as an entity.
Yes.
Now
something that existing that did not exist then was suspicion. Now that you suspect everybody, he's not from the tribe, he's not from your religion, suspicion is everywhere. But in those days, you knew where you were. And if you come to meet, you discuss, and you say, oh, this is what we're going to do in Parliament.
So the move by General Yakubu Gowon then to have a 12-state structure, breaking up the 4 regions into that component, did it weaken the Nigerian state?
One would say yes. Remember, the 12 state was to weaken Biafra.
Clearly.
To extricate what is now the South-South. Why it weakened the South-South? It also created power centers elsewhere. And people who hitherto used to be under some authority now found themselves to be free. And when you are free, what do? You express your freedom, which also gave rise to power centers in the North.
Let's take a look at some of the existing policies of government, which is geared towards uniting the country, the federal character system. Do you think that particular policy of government system has been able to unite the country further, to be able to give some sense of belonging to every Nigerian? Has that system worked?
I would say it has not worked. And why? Because this federal character, like I said, the unity form of system is what is causing dissension. Now, the federal government is in charge of education, in charge of this, in charge of that, in charge of this.
It's actually on the concurrent list, both federal and state.
Yes.
Education.
Okay. Let's take JAM, for example. That's not a concurrent list. Somebody scores 200. He's not given admission. Somebody scores 45. He's given admission. This person who has lost school for 1 year, he will bear some animosity because he knows the central system that is forcing him into this condition. If he was on his own, in the First Republic, there was no JAM. You applied to universities you want, and they took you if you were qualified. That gave those universities standards. Today, they don't have that standard anymore. You check the list of the first 1,000 universities in the world. No Nigerian university is there. In those days, the diplomats here had their children attending schools in Nigeria. Today, I'm not sure most diplomats have their schools attending schools here. The minister, the ambassador of Benin, or, I don't know, when we are taking our children to Benin, will he bring his children here to study?
Okay, now let's look at the issues that led to the termination of the Second Republic. The military was in power from 1966 to 79, handed over, like the word is used, to civilians to run, Shagari and all the other governors of the 19 states. But the military came back. What did the military see again?
Well, they are citing this example of corruption. For me, I don't think military has any role in government like this. So that's why I'm saying that they're rogue regimes, because they didn't respect the interests of the country. You can quote the reason you have because of opportunity and overthrow a government. The corruption they say they came to fight increased even multiple fold. And that's what we're still fighting till today. So what are we talking about?
Do you think that the reason why the military, intervened at every point in time in democratic dispensation was because at the time, on the African continent, there was pervasive military rule in West Africa and everywhere else?
The first coup that failed was, to me, even though it was a rogue regime, more patriotic than the balance. Others were there more like for personal reasons. And we translated personal interest to mean national interest. That's the way I see it.
Okay, General, do you agree that the military itself became so politicized? Looking at what happened from the fall of the Second Republic in 1983, December the 31st, then the military continued up until, one would say, the Kakaaki that was created by General Ibrahim Babangida. And the same military political analysts say even ensured the Third Republic was aborted. So the military in Nigeria's democracy and development.
You're very correct. Because when you taste the forbidden fruit, you want to have it all the time. The military became politicized. And it affected us in every way. In our integrity, our outlook, we started living opulent lives. When you have been there, you want that kind of thing to continue. It even affected the performance of the armed forces. We had cases of corruption, as you may have seen, a lot of court martials, people diverting money for equipment, for personal use. That is not what we should celebrate.
What should Nigeria be reflecting on at this point in time? Because when you look at the issues raised by the military and the reason for taking over, it borders on corruption. It borders on nepotism. Now, what lessons have Nigerian elites, political elites, learned from this history that we are recounting today?
If you say what lessons they have learned, I would say they have learned no lessons. So what we should do is, what lesson should they learn? And what the lesson they should learn is that we should go back to what worked for us before. If you have done something before and it worked, try it again. So we should go back to a federal system that recognizes the political integrity of federating units. Let federating units run their affair as before. It will reduce all these things we're talking about. Let them take care of themselves. Now, let them have their resources, pay as it was before to the federal government some portion of what they are getting. Then they can be monitored by their people, not when they get money from Abuja. Nobody can challenge them at home. And because they are tied into the center, federal might is involved. When you challenge them, federal might easily comes in to their assistance. So all these things perpetuate what we're trying to change. So we have to go back to the structuring to find our foot. It's like you're going somewhere, you miss your direction. You go back to where you missed it and retrace your steps.
President Buhari, during the Independence Day broadcast on Monday morning, spoke about the need for a resolution of the farmers' herdsmen crisis. And you know, as we speak, there's an Operation Whirlwind in Benue trying to resolve this issue. That's the level to which this crisis has gotten us to. Do you think that the restructuring of the Federation will address that issue?
Definitely, it will.
In what area? How?
Because now what we are having is not just the invasion of the herdsmen. Communities are displaced. Populations are supplanted. These are the areas we're talking about. What effort is being made to return the people who have taken over these areas away from there? Let those in refugee camps come back to their homes. Are they going to live in refugee camps forever? So when you are in your place, you can decide what to do. Whether you want to ranch your cattle, you want to do this, you have a free hand to do what you want.
Okay, still talking about the lessons learned, Nigeria at 58. General, the elections are close. We can see the various political parties trying to, get their candidates who they will present to contest for public office. The current elites, this is the fifth round of elections in this Fourth Republic. What are your own expectations from the present crop of politicians? I know we started in 99. By next year, it will be 20 good years of the Fourth Republic. Are they addressing the issues?
That will be difficult to say offhand, because if you look at what is happening, the same players, they keep defecting from one party to the other. That shows you there's no ideology. They don't have a certain belief. This is what we believe in. So they're all jostling for positions of opportunity. So if you're jostling for position of opportunity, is it for opportunity for yourself, your family, or for the country? This is where I have my fears and my doubts. We need people who can say this is what they stand for. People can say, yes, this is their belief. Elsewhere, if you were like in the US, you change from Republican to Democrat, you are finished for life. It means you don't know what you're doing. Or in Britain, you change from Labour to this, it means you don't know what you're doing. Here, we just change like we're changing our shirts and trousers, and we expect people to believe us. And I blame the Nigerian public. They're so gullible, so unthinking. They don't ask themselves, they don't interrogate anything. The person comes with salt today, people are selling their votes, election and vote buying. We're just in the same
haven't we made some progress, some level of progress, considering the fact that with the social media, Nigerians are now being very engaging with government policies. They want to know what the government has in stock for them. They want to know how it affects their lives and improve their lives. Is that not progress being made in a democratic dispensation? Is there no? Don't you think that there is some level of political, high-level political awareness and participation?
No, I must accept that. That one is we've gone far. We've done that, and in fact, in many occasions, the pressure from the social media has given government a change of mind. So, for example, the Adeosun issue, I think pressure from social media caused her ouster. If not, maybe she'll still be there.
Now, how do we engage Nigerians further to the extent that they begin to ask very critical questions and make demands? Now, if they are making demands, what kind of demands should Nigerians be making at this time?
First, the kind of demands we should make now, I must keep stressing, is this demand to restructure.
Restructuring has different definitions.
It cannot have different definitions. It is just people who are mischievous. It cannot have different definitions. Some say it's restructuring of the mind, religious restructuring. That is just trying to evade the whole thing. Look at the basis of federalism. Those federations come together, agree on what we want to do, and then give the right to the center. If federalism has changed from that, then they can let us know. Then we can rewrite our political history books.
Now, what would you say to critics or analysts who have said that before we begin to talk about the general principle of restructuring, which is devolution of power and fiscal...
Reclaiming power usurped by center, yes.
Fiscal federalism, that we should begin to interrogate how the current structure has been able to work fruitfully for the people. For instance, the powers that exist within the state government. I mean, we have states who still owe salaries, who have not paid salaries. There are states who have not been able to, improve the business infrastructure, create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. Now, don't you think that these are basic areas that should be handled before looking at the bigger picture of restructuring?
Yeah, if we do this and we don't restructure, it's like giving Panadol to a bone fracture. These people, like I said, going back to the beginning, they're anti-people. They don't care for the people because they're not responsible to the people. Restructuring will make them responsible to the people. That's what we're demanding. They're not responsible to the people. Can you challenge the governor to anything? The police will be after you.
Just recently, the president signed a law that gave autonomy to the state houses of assembly. There is this general perception about the strength of governors and the overbearing influence they have on state governance. Now, with that particular stroke of the pen by the president, do you think that perhaps that should be considered as part of restructuring, thereby taking power to the people and reducing the powers that the governors ordinarily wield on the affairs of the state?
Autonomy of the assembly is not something you write and pen. It is what is gotten by the people by themselves. You can write it.
Financial autonomy.
Of what impact is it? Governor still doesn't give them money. So what happens? The governor should be responsible to the people. We have to stress that.
Okay, General, are you of the opinion of some political analysts who believe that the office of the Nigerian president is too powerful? Or we need a strong office that has such powers to keep the nation together?
See, when we go back to discussing how we should exist, the federating units, Nigerians will decide what amount of power the president will have. We have not done that. We tried to do that, like I said, before independence, the Litigation Constitution. We tried that at the national conference. None of it has been worked. I mean, none of it has been implemented or executed. If we are here just theorizing what should be, we're wasting our time. We should go back down to the field and sit down and say, this is what we want, this is what we don't want. And everybody should agree on it. Then we'll move forward. you will see the takeoff of this country. We shall now achieve our dreams. Our children will come back from, children are overseas. The parents are here lonely because you can't bring them back to this climb. You know, there's nothing to offer them. They are there developing other economies. We have brains out there.
Now, one issue that this current administration has taken as one of its cardinal focus is the fight against corruption. Now, you would say that is not entirely a new focus for any government because it began right from, you know, the dismantling of the First Republic.
That's right.
Do you think that perhaps this administration has devised more ingenious ways to address the issue of corruption?
I don't, when you say more ingenious ways, it's the same investigation, getting the evidence and taking the people to court. I don't know if there's anything different. Maybe what we can say here is there is a will to do that.
Maybe the question would be, do you think that we as a country have been able to define what corruption is and know exactly what we are battling?
We know what corruption is.
Is it financial?
No.
Is it financial? Is it nepotism?
Salamatu, we know what corruption is. But the problem is, do you want to work with what you know is corruption or not?
General, we would sincerely like to thank you for joining us on Kakaaki. General Collins Ihekire, a former commander of the African Union troops in Darfur, Sudan. Thank you for coming on Kakaaki.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being a part of today's show. We will return again 6 to 9 tomorrow with another edition of Kakaaki, the African Voice. In the meantime, have yourself a wonderful day. I am Salamatu Ibrahim.
I am Shola Jayesemi. Thanks for staying with us.
Goodbye.